Thank you, everyone. As Chris said, my name is Brendan Gualdoni. I'm from Express, the fashion retailer. I lead e-commerce and digital engineering. And today, we're going to talk about a real-life story from the API economy. This is a story about writing software. It is a story about experimentation with an enterprise system and throw in some open source, throw in some DevOps, throw in scaling the software, and then, of course, we have to release customer features. And we have to keep doing this over and over again. In order to begin, let's define some terms. What is the API economy? If we break this down, API is how two computers interact. I think we are all familiar with the application protocol interface. But economy is a little more complicated. If you just take the word at face value, it's just the study of supply and demand and how those two interact. But in actuality, there's a lot more to the story than that. So when I think of the API economy, I think of supply and demand. These two are constantly trying to get back to equilibrium, making sure what is actually demanded and supplies they actually meet. The other piece of this, when I think about it, is the invisible hand. Today we're going to walk through each one of these, and it's going to be a journey of engineering, which has, fingers on keyboards, that's experimenting with the software, and moving forward in how we actually defined our new architecture. Let's start with the invisible hand. The invisible hand is the protagonist character in this story, who's played by an executive. And for those of you who are not familiar with what the invisible hand is, it's a participant in a market who does something in that market that can have either an intended or unintended consequence for the public, or in this case, the express customer. Most of the examples of the invisible hand are not a single person, but sometimes a single person is the driving force that changes the market and forces it back to equilibrium. So let me begin. So a real-life story from the API economy in 3 acts. For Act 1, the invisible hand, which in our case is the executive. Act 2, supply, which is data. And then Act 3, the demand, or the customer. Act 1, the invisible hand. Let me paint a picture for you. I was in a boardroom. It was a huge table. It had these uncomfortable-looking basket-weaving chairs. It had unintentional architectural uplighting, and the walls had leather wallpaper. The discussion we were having was a big, complex project. Since I'm a fashion retailer, holiday means everything to us. So that means this project is going to be date-driven. It's large, which will span across multiple cross-functional teams, not just marketing, but also all the engineering teams. And it might be the brand moment. That was the discussion. How big was this thing that we were going to do? Is it going to be the brand moment? Is it just going to be another product launch? I really didn't know. But as the conversation was moving forward, and since I was the only technologist in the room, I was about to be asked the impossible. So what was the ask? What were we talking about? We were talking about the mobile app. And during the course of this conversation, I had the question that's an executive asked me that said, why can't our mobile app match our desktop or be best in class? I think that's a fair statement. I mean, that's where the market is, and that's what I was being compared to. Then there was the next question, my favorite, is, isn't mobile the place where you should be innovating? Yeah, I could agree with that. But then, as the conversation moved forward, the executive asked what he really wanted. Why can't we have Apple Pay? Today, that seems very trivial, but for this project and looking at this app that we had back then, it was a complete marketing and loyalty app. It was pushing content. It was talking about the next brand or clothing launch, and in some cases, just talking about a sale that we might have later on. The problem, though, with that is that in order to do this, we had to define how we're going to do commerce in our app. Now, keep in mind, this app didn't have any iOS user experience standards. I didn't have APIs for login. I didn't even have APIs for add to bag. If I can't add to bag, how can I transact with Apple Pay? I mean, it just doesn't even make any sense. So instead of us talking about this big, complex project that's supposed to be a brand moment, the actual complex project they were talking about was building a new app. Why was this so big? In 2015, we had an enterprise e-commerce system that produced HTML, JSPs. I didn't have any APIs, which leads to all the issues that I can't do commerce on an app. It had loyalty features, but I didn't even have login or a way to authenticate the users, let alone take that information and then go look up their loyalty points. The problem wasn't how to build a mobile app. I knew I couldn't do that because I didn't even have mobile engineers. The issue is how do I innovate and get to the vision of actually answering that simple question? But the big problem is that people don't realize is innovation actually costs money. So it was quite clear what they were asking for. They wanted a better mobile app, which made sense to me. What does that really mean? Is this a new channel? Is this an omni feature? Are we just trying to stay relevant? Do I need my customers to transition from desktop to mobile? What does it really mean? And then, besides not having any of the architecture in place, the other issue is they want this to be the place where we're supposed to innovate. Innovate. Back to this word. Innovation costs money. Now, in order to do this, I need to spend some of the executive's budget in order to make it happen. I needed money to experiment. I need money to discover. But no finance team will give you money to do that. But since I'm an engineer running an engineering team, and if I don't know how to do something, I have to experiment. There's no way around it. So, as we went on with this conversation, the executive kept talking about we needed to be in mobile. This is the place where we need to be. This was good. It was great, actually. I was making a good impression with my boss's boss, with my boss in the room, and I was feeling really good. I mean, if he was going to give us some budget, I was thinking, okay, I could get some consulting dollars to bring in some experts with mobile, potentially do a proof of concept with microservices, or just get some money to buy O'Reilly books to try and train my team on how to do this. But what happened next was a scene from a movie. It's kind of one of those career-defining moments. They wanted something big, and they were willing to actually give some of the budget to do this. So as the conversation started progressing forward and we were pivoting towards the mobile app, I was finally asked that question, which is, can you do this, and what do you need to make this happen? I was shocked. I was surprised. But remember, this was the big, large, complex project. It wasn't just a marketing push or a brand moment. I mean, this was potentially being the brand moment. They're not even launching new clothing lines with it, but they want it to be a new platform and a new channel where our customers can go and not only shop, but also share and add loyalty features, potentially use their gift cards on the app. There were so many things to do before answering that question. But I had innovation running around in my head. I was very confident. And I was thinking, is this executive who is the invisible hand, were they giving us a strategy? Was this a vision? I really didn't know. As I was thinking about how I was going to answer the question and hearing the word innovate in my head and looked out to my peers at the table, the question came back again. Can you do this, and what do you need to make this happen? I didn't really think about it. I just answered yes, and I overpromised. So how did we innovate? How did we get there? We had to define our API structure because I didn't have APIs. I had to procure an API gateway because we have to secure APIs and actually get them to the systems that actually need to consume them. We had to solve navigation. We had to unify the experience from the desktop through MWeb through this mobile app. We had to figure out how to authenticate so we can log our users in and then eventually authorize that user to talk to our loyalty system. And we had to create a mobile roadmap to make all this happen. So fast forward, and 4 months later, we created APIs that were RESTful and stateless. We launched and procured a new API gateway. We started to build microservices. And we launched a hybrid native mobile app. So we had everything from homepage, if you will, all the way through the browse path, and then eventually we started to build on top of that. That was the starting ground. Act 2, supply. Supply is the data that fuels the API economy. In our case, it's personified by Legos. What types of data is this? There's customer data, there's SEO data, there's analytic data, there's web analytics, there's marketing data, there's third-party data, lots and lots of data. And I think just hearing this morning's sessions, we can all agree that we need a better way to actually manage and marshal this data and actually use it to get a return on an investment. All the different types of data that I'm talking about are different pieces of fuel for the API economy. But it's ironic that today we are forwarding and storing massive amounts of data. We have pipelines that are pushing to persistence layers at a rate that we haven't seen in years. We have databases full of data. We have files. We have files we call databases. We have in-memory databases and NoSQL databases, and now we're putting things on an elastic beanstalk. What does that really mean? Where's that going to get us? Because most companies have better handle on their logging information from their application layer than we actually do our own customer data. Once this data starts flowing, it keeps flowing. And eventually, the power of moving this data around is actually the issue. And we're spending money on the infrastructure and the processing power to actually make this happen. But as you take bytes and you turn them into objects, then you persist them into a database, you need to move them around again. Customer shopping habits never end. And this data just keeps filling up until we don't know what to do with it. And the money that we should be spending on carrying and feeding for this data and potentially buying a product that could help our marketers utilize this data, we actually have to take that money and spend it on the underlying infrastructure just to manage the next load of data that's coming in. But then, at some point in time, as the data keeps flowing and flowing, our data becomes jailed. How did we get here? What does this mean? Was it one bad quarter and they actually cut some of our IT budget? And maybe that was the quarter we were going to actually fix our MapReduce cycle, maybe speed it up, maybe buy the extra processing power that we need? It really doesn't matter, because now we need the money just to house the data and care for the data, instead of actually processing the data that we want in real time. This is an example of what the data should actually look like. But we have to first figure out how to onboard the data, marshal it, save it, and then reuse it again so we can actually get this return on investment. Data is one of those interesting things where you don't really think about it. You think about it in graphs, but it really actually has a life cycle. I mean, just think about what we've seen here. First, it's a pile of stuff that just comes in. That's the lake that people were talking about earlier, the data lake. Some of this data is unified with schemas coming from the same places. Some of it isn't. Some of it is, quite honestly, unstructured. So what we have to do next is then actually take it and organize it, put it in piles, in this case by colors, or stack it by types of data. But once we actually figure out how to do that and do it quickly, we can move on to the really cool stuff, which, what does the data enable? I mean, it enables complex analytics. It enables a DPM platform. It enables artificial intelligence, machine learning, and deep learning. Act 3, the demand. The customers are demanding more. In our case, since I'm a fashion retailer, it's not just new products or new colors and new fits of clothing. The customers do want that. But what the customer really wants is they want to experience our product and see how it looks either on a model that looks like me, or potentially a virtual model that is my image with the clothing on top of it. Or, some case, customers actually want to go into the store and try it on, which is another tricky piece, because is my size going to be there? The customer. The customer is really demanding a better experience. We've talked about that this morning as well. And companies that succeed with innovation and technology will do this with their invisible hand, their executive. In order to do this, companies must evolve and iterate to modern design practices. This is from continuous integration to moving software to production, but it's also starting to move towards microservices and having companies like Express pay for what they use and not what they're licensed for. as companies change and evolve, we started off a journey to say, hey, we need to be omni-focused. This is things like ship from store, buy online, pick up in store. But really what that means is just the supply chain relative to me, the customer, which is great. Next, we talk about returns. I'm sure all of you have purchased shoes online, and when you purchase shoes, you purchase 4 or 5 pair with the intention of returning. Now, that's not an iteration of how the company is going to operate, but what it really is just a new demand that the customer wants. They want that experience. They want to be able to buy 3 or 4 pairs of whatever it is, this jacket, shoes, and they're wanting to return it. That's just the new norm. What really is next is, as a company, we're going to be customer focused. Great. What does that one mean now? Customer focus is a tricky one because you build product teams who will work with vendors that offer you simple solutions. Drop in this piece of JavaScript. Here's an API key. We're getting new features to our customers faster than ever. But are they satisfied? What else do they want? I mean, we've already figured out how to make a store or warehouse and ship to the trunk of your car. What else does the customer want? Does anyone know what the customer wants? I do. The customer wants everything and the experience. I thought that would have been obvious from this morning's presentation, but the issue is Express is just selling shirts and dresses, but the customer wants that to be elevated. The customer wants a better experience, and they want it to be powered by innovation. Let's start with a simple use case. Customer buys an Express men's shirt, pays the credit card, receives an email receipt. That's just standard. All of us in this room can do that. Maybe some companies will add a private label gift card, or maybe, I don't know, let you use your rewards points. But that's just a little elevated, and it's becoming even more standard. Let's look at this a little differently. So, the same use case, but a little different. The customer confidently purchases a men's 1MX shirt, which is one of our highest selling products. They can do this confidently because of some new fit technology that makes the customer feel like, I know that shirt's going to fit me. That's elevated. Next, the customer pays with Apple Pay. Maybe this Apple Pay has a digital wallet that has my private label credit card or my gift card that I can actually use. That's innovative. Last, the customer receives an interactive digital receipt via Facebook Messenger. That's an experience. So today, we walked through each of these, the supply, demand, and the invisible hand, which is the data, the customer, and our executive. Where does this leave us? Where do these actors collaborate? Right in the middle. And the way they're going to do this is with microservices. In the end, we built an OAuth login via microservices, which connected to our loyalty. We built microservices for our product catalog, our navigation, our add to bag, and our transactions. We were able to do checkout with our order APIs and then post customer purchase. We were incrementally knitting and stitching together experiences using microservices. And we had Apple Pay. If I had what I actually needed, which is a headless commerce and media platform that once knitted together via hypermedia is cloud ready and enabled to scale, and if I had to do it all over again, it might look something like this. So let's start with microservices in a cloud-native platform. Let's add in our DAM and our digital experience platform. This is used to fine-tune and operate the store. Both of these need to be API first. On top of that, we built a view layer that is elegant and flexible, and this is a single-page app architecture with React and GraphQL. GraphQL is one of those things that you don't have to do with React, but if you do it correctly, it gives you another aggregation point, and it elevates your traditional front-end development team and makes the team JavaScript engineers. So that takes care of the customer's browse path. What else? I need another API so I can take that order and I can transact with my ERP systems and my order management system. And then I need to add in some security. Akamai is a CDN, but really they're more of a security company nowadays for cyber attacks. And then we put a little bit of our secret sauce in there just so we can scale according. This architecture provides the flexibility for channel, omni, and experience touchpoints. It further decouples the view and makes it completely independent. In the end, the invisible hand did not get parity with the website or Apple Pay. But what we did build is a microservices architecture and system that enabled mobile and other customer touch points that now service millions of customers' orders every year. The first launch of our app was in 4 months. Within a year, because of the APIs and additional microservices we were building and partnering with other vendors, we had a fully native mobile app. And then a year plus after that, we were able to add Apple Pay and other different types of payment types, like our private label credit card or the gift cards from our loyalty members. All the digital plumbing that went into transforming the mobile app is foundational to transforming our commerce, desktop, in-store commerce, and the associate experience. At the end of it, we successfully decapsulated commerce. The view is completely decoupled and driven via microservices. We have a headless architecture that we continue to evolve and add new customers' features. The digital experience platform allows the team to operate our store, and then we still continue to build microservices. Thank you. Do you have any questions? Go ahead.
Does the marketing team have the ability to manage and change the experience of the app themselves, or do they have to go through IT to request changes?
Good question. No, they don't have to go through IT. They can launch experiences, whether it's the home page, changing the navigation, adding a marketing touch point inside the app somewhere, And then we also had the option, since it was a native mobile app, we could still punch out to a web page as well. But it became very flexible. And then the other part of the roadmap is actually what's the team that needs to be around the mobile app to actually operate on it. And now we have that model going forward when we launch, the associate-facing apps or in-store customer tools. And what's next for Express is as we elevated and launched the experiences with mobile app and different types of features, now we can actually have such large demand that's happening right now that's actually taxing our enterprise system. So the next piece is how do we change that commerce engine again so that we can grow but be flexible enough to be there and wherever the customer wants us to be. And this is, in this case, I'm not just talking B2C customers, it could be B2B, it could be launching a new store, it could be launching a capsule line with a celebrity. It's virtually endless. And it made it what we did was listen to what the actual merchants wanted. So Express is a fashion retailer, we're not a technology company, and merchants actually run the business. And what they want is, they might want this shirt merchandised with the blue shirts, but they also might buy the orange shirt. Well, that's great, and you have a product detail page that has all those colors there. Eventually, though, the orange shirt or the non-traditional shirt, they're going to want to clearance that out, and we needed a way to stitch or remove those products and then stitch them back together so we can, move those to clearance or do something else with it.